Good, how are you? Yep.
There's a road.
I'd say you got to pick your spot. Okay. Yep, you're fine. Yep. Everybody good now? We're good? Okay. So good afternoon. Today I'm here just to give some updates on some of the activity that happened overnight on July 4th and through July 5th, as well as some other incidents that we've had over the past couple days. So we're going to start with the incident that occurred at Buckeye Plaza. This happened early morning on July 5th. Officers received a shot spotter alert and calls for service to respond to Buckeye Plaza area for several shots that were fired. When they arrived on scene, they found a car meetup that contained hundreds of people and vehicles that were fleeing the area upon their arrival. When they got on scene, they found that there was a male who had been shot multiple times. He was later pronounced deceased at the hospital, as well as 4 other individuals who drove to nearby hospitals who had sustained gunshot wounds. The crime scene was large. It was including the plaza and Buckeye Road. There were 2 firearms that were discovered in the bushes nearby, as well as a vehicle that was towed from an area hospital that also contained 2 firearms. We're still investigating this, gathering video evidence to make sure that we have an arrest in this case. But what I want to talk about a little bit is actually what happened over the holiday weekend. So the calls for service, we had over 600 calls for service spanning from 10 p.m. July 4th through 6 a.m. on July 5th. So in an 8-hour period throughout the city, we had over 600 calls for service. Of those 600 calls, 200 of those were just in the 4th District. So the 4th District, a lot of the incidents that happened over the weekend occurred in that particular district. So just to tell a little bit about what happened in that district overnight and about the response there, they started around 11:30 p.m. Officers responded to the area of 110th to 120th and Miles. There was a large block party that occurred. They had requested a permit for the block party, which was denied by the city, and the area residents decided to go ahead with that party. The officers responded out after there were fireworks that caught fire. There were fights that were happening. They responded out and found a large chaotic scene with a lot of fights that were occurring. There were 2 officers that were injured on the scene, one with a broken hand, another sustained a bite from an individual. The officers were trying to break up that large party, and there was over 500 people that were out there when the officers responded. The supervisor had responded out to that area and to the hospital to check on the officers. And when he was coming up, he did notice that there was a car meetup in the Buckeye Plaza, which he was trying to gather the officers to respond out to address that. So right around the time he was gathering the cars, it was around 3 a.m., a shot spotter alert came in for the area of Fullerton, the 6900 block of Fullerton. He had to break off there and go over to Fullerton, where they found 2 individuals that were deceased from gunshot wounds, a male and a female. While they were investigating that, he again tried to break his cars off to respond to Buckeye. As they were doing that, it was around 4 a.m., about an hour later. That's when the shot spotter alert had come over for Buckeye Plaza, and then the officers responded. We had officers not only from the 4th District, but from the 3rd District and 1st District that responded out to assist with this large chaotic event. One of the things I want to talk about, because I know a question will come up about staffing. There's no amount of staffing that can cover 600 calls for service in the night in the city of Cleveland, or 200 just in one police district in an 8-hour period. Our men and women are out there, they're working hard, but you have fireworks going off, you have people shooting, you have large chaotic parties that are being hosted. And when it gets later into the night, alcohol infused, it's really unmanageable at some points. So I hope that gives a better explanation about that. We'll stop for questions on these particular incidents before we talk about the incident on Harvard last night.
Chief, any arrests on the one on Buckeye? Any arrests on that yet?
So we don't have any arrests at this time. We will absolutely keep you updated, but we are reviewing video footage from the area, and we have some leads in that.
And so if anybody did see something, or people have cell phone
Yes.
video, maybe they should contact you?
And we're hoping, because a lot of times a lot of this is shared on social media, so we are hoping that anyone with tips can either contact Crime Stoppers or our homicide unit.
Chief, what would you say to citizens about their responsibility to abate some of this stuff? I mean,
So when a block party permit request comes in for July 4th for such a big area like Miles Avenue between East 110th to East 120th, there's reasons we deny it, because we know that this has the capability, especially on a holiday, to be out of control. When you see what's happening across the nation with some of these large gatherings, it's unsafe. And when you have people that are going there to create chaos, when you have alcohol-driven chaos, that's really hard to manage for anyone. And really creates an unsafe environment.
Chief, any leads on the Fullerton incident with the man and the woman?
So we are following separate leads in that, and we hope to have an update for that soon.
so
Chief,
overall, arrest.
on the Miles Avenue block party where they closed the street. They closed the street they even put dumpsters in the street to block
Absolutely.
the street. And calls had come in for hours complaining about that. How could no Cleveland police officer be available to go there for hours?
So what I can say is we're not going to have one officer go there. We can't have one zone car respond to address a crowd of 500 plus people. We had to make sure we formulated a plan to get several officers on site to actually go out there. Going out there and asking one person asking someone to turn the music down or to stop the party is not going to be successful. We had to go out there with a solid plan, and that's what they did, and they were able to clear that crowd out.
And in the big picture you talk about, you were talking about staffing. I think one of the patterns that we see between the Lee and Harvard case, the Miles case, the Buckeye case, the Luther case, we see these large crowds of people. How is it that no police officers ever see any of these large crowds of people until the calls start coming in because of gunfire?
Well, if you have to, I can tell you the Buckeye Plaza, the supervisors knew that there was cars there that they were trying to address. But when you look at it, on a night like this, you're responding from call to call to call to call. And you're not having the opportunity to just patrol your sector, patrol your zone. They're just responding to every call that comes in. So when you're talking about 600 calls for service citywide that comes in an 8-hour shift, that's a lot of calls for service. And 200 in just one district. That is, there's not time for anything. There's not time for them to stop and check and observe everything that's happening throughout the city.
Any thought ever given to calling in the sheriff's department on nights like this, on holiday weekends, when things are likely to get to be this busy?
Well, I know that the sheriff's department has their members that are designated, and they have, their assigned patrols. What we do is we called in the cars from the different districts. So we had to, reinforce the fourth district officers by bringing in other cars. If we felt that there was that need for additional outside of the city support, we would absolutely do that. And we've done that on other incidents in the past.
Was the city's real-time crime center, was it staffed 24/7?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
did that maybe help you get some video?
Yeah, it's a critical part of our investigation is reviewing all the footage. And then also if someone has footage available, they can share it with us or the detectives at the districts or in our homicide unit.
Chief, this isn't the first time that car meetups have led to violence or been associated with issues in the city, but this is the second time within a month we've seen 2 mass shootings related to the car meetups. What has changed between now and last year?
So as far as
Why are so many people getting shot at these?
that's a question I can't answer. That is absolutely something I can't answer, why someone is resulting in pulling a gun out and shooting at a car meetup. that's for the individuals who are involved in that. But the car meetups, they happen. We have a car meetup detail that runs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week. When we talk about what happened, there was the bike night over in the 4th District last night on Harvard, 174th and Harvard. Our car meetup detail was working last night. They were over on the west side towing ATVs when that happened, and our helicopter and the cars responded out to break that up. When you have organized events where you have 200-300 cars that are meeting up in the same area, we have to make sure we have a plan in place when we're going out. But these car meetup details that we have are absolutely helping to, their focus is to look for these car meetups, but the participants know, and they move the spots as much as we try to address them.
But as for the scale of the gun violence, it does seem, at least with these two, I mean, perhaps it's just anecdotal, but it does seem like the scale of the number of people who are wounded or shot has gone up compared to what we've seen last summer. Is this gang activity? Is this just people retaliation? What is causing so many more people to get shot?
Until we get more information, I can't provide that answer. So until we have somebody who gives it, the victims, or there's an arrest made, it'll help us determine exactly what was the cause of it. Was it an argument? What led to the shooting? So we don't have that yet, but we hope to have more answers for that soon.
And a lot of residents are concerned because there's been 3 shootings and multiple people, just in the past 4 weeks. Are there any changes or anything that you're recommending so that maybe this weekend doesn't have? I know it's hard to.
It's the thing for us is it's unpredictable. We have our violent crime reduction details, we have our traffic initiatives, we have our car meetup details, and we are putting all of our forces out there to try to get ahead of things. But unfortunately, things do happen, and we are doing everything we can, including trying to arrest the individuals involved before there's any some type of retaliation that occurs.
Last question, Channel 5.
Again, I'm sorry?
Last question, Channel 5.
Chief, I apologize if I missed this already. It sounds like you guys had some staffing challenges. How many patrol officers did you have?
I can get that answer for you. I'm not sure exactly. And I'm not saying that there was staffing challenges. That's what, again, I don't want to say this is related to staffing, because it doesn't matter if you had hundreds of officers out there. It's not, when you're getting this many calls for service throughout the city in an 8-hour period, all the police we have here couldn't control what was happening.
Chief, how do you convince the public that you have control of the streets when we're seeing mass shooting after major event?
Now, you call it a mass shooting, and any shooting is any shooting that happens,
Yeah,
but it's really
but we're seeing all these major incidents. So
yeah.
Given all the major incidents, how do you convince the public that you have control of the streets?
Well, if you look at our overall numbers, our violent crime numbers are down. Our homicides are down, almost 30%. Our felonious assaults are down almost 30%. So when you look at that, one incident is too many. But if you look at the overall stats for the city for this year in 2025 compared to even last year, our major crimes like that are down.
Even now, the homicide's still down?
They're still down.
Even after this month?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, I can't go anywhere.
Oh, now everybody has to get the
Yeah.
mic off.
I'm probably gonna see more, you know. I know. Yeah, I've only been with them for like. That's the one. But yeah.